Heading into the NBA season, many believe that the Golden State Warriors will bounce back and return to a contender, or a playoff team at the very least. We all know by now that this team has had their fair share of bad luck due to injuries, but during this time, they were able to acquire a ton of young talents that many believe will form the next dynasty in the NBA, and one of those players is Jordan Poole. Since joining the Dubs, Jordan Poole has blown past all expectations, stepping into a six-man type role last year, and now likely a starting role this year. But what if I told you that Jordan Poole could not only become one of the most improved players of the year this season, but also become the next star that could take the Warriors team to the next level? Today, we have to talk Golden State Warriors, and in particular, taking a deep dive into Jordan Poole, why he's expected to take a huge leap this season, and what exactly he needs to do in order to make his star dreams a reality. Not to mention how this will impact the Warriors winning this year and why it could lead to them shocking everyone if things go Poole's way. Like I said, with the NBA season almost upon us, many analysts and executives believe that the Warriors will have a bounce back season. And I mean, it makes sense. This was a team that had a scoring leader last year in Steph Curry who continues to look better and better each season. Another great shooter and defender in Klay Thompson making a return mid-season, and an insane amount of depth and young talent surrounding their two stars. And spoiler alerts, a lot of these guys can shoot the ball at an elite rate as well. Last Warriors video I went over some of the Warriors' depth in Otto Porter Jr. and Nemanja Bjelica and said that they would likely be elite shooters for the Warriors. And even though we've only seen preseason ball from the Dubs so far, I have to say, my take is looking like it'll be true. But although guys like Porter Jr. and Bjelica will be good for the team, we know what they'll bring, and that they do in fact have a ceiling, being that we've seen what they can do year after year. Where it gets exciting for this team is their young talent that they have so much of. Many have been hyping up players like James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, or even Moses Moody, but the player that I believe has the chance to have the biggest impact this year is none of those guys. It's actually Jordan Poole, and to say that he's been showing flashes of being something very special is an absolute understatement. Now take this with a grain of salt, because like I said, all we've seen so far is preseason games, but in these games, I have to say Jordan Poole has been balling out, and maybe that statement isn't even giving him enough credit for what he's been able to do on the court. So far in the Warriors preseason games, Jordan Poole is averaging over 25 points per game on 52% shooting from the field in just 23 minutes of play. Now I know, this is a very small sample size, and some of you will say that the preseason doesn't even count for the most part. But I have to say, I beg to differ, and if you've watched these preseason games, you would agree. Normally, the pace of preseason is slower, and players are doing things like testing out new moves or just trying to ease back into the fast-paced game of the NBA. But this year, well, I think this year has been somewhat different. Across the board, not just for the Warriors, it seems as though teams are playing with far more intensity, and some have even gone as far as saying that it's carried a similar intensity to playoff basketball. I mean, we've already seen dunks that would have been labeled the dunk of the year in past seasons, ankle breakers, buzzer beaters, and overall very competitive basketball, which leads me to believe that what we're seeing from Jordan Poole should not go away due to the competition getting tougher. So far, Jordan Poole has been putting on a clinic since the new season began, shooting the lights off from three with confidence and getting to the rack a good amount as well. This elite play by Poole has gotten a lot of people talking, and brought up a legitimate question. Could Poole become a star before our eyes and become yet another splash bro for the Warriors? And all I have to say to that is after taking a deep dive into the stats, what I found might shock you. So with that being said, let's get right into the numbers, and why they show that Poole could take a huge leap in his third season. Coming into the league in 2019, the expectations for Jordan Poole were, well, little to none at the time. Being that he was the 28th pick in the draft, the Golden State Warriors and everyone else who kept up with the draft didn't really have big expectations. But here we are. Jordan Poole has proved almost all of these people wrong with his improvement year by year. When he first entered the league, Poole was nothing special, averaging 9 points, 2 assists, and a couple of rebounds per game with the Warriors. His shooting was also horrendous, being that he shot just 33% from the field and 27% from 3, which, to say the least, is not good on a 3-point heavy Warriors offense. But despite the rough start, Poole worked on his craft during the 2020 offseason and was able to improve astronomically, averaging 12 points and the same amount of rebounds and assists. But what is truly amazing is the improved efficiency from Poole, being that he shot 43% from the field and 35% from 3. Yeah, you heard me right. Poole improved so much that his 3-point percentage from this year became better than his field goal percentage from last year. Not to mention, he put up way more points in less minutes per game. Here's where things get good for the Warriors fans though, because heading into the season, it was reported that Jordan Poole is expected to start at the shooting guard until Klay Thompson returns and get a much bigger role compared to last year. This got me thinking, what should we realistically expect from Jordan Poole in his bigger role? And all I have to say to that is if he continues his upward trajectory, he could very well become a star for this team. And well, the stats don't lie. As mentioned, going from his 2019-2020 season to last year, Jordan Poole improved his efficiency tremendously, increasing his 3-ball by over 8% and his field goal percentage as a whole by 10% as well. Now I know that we might not see this type of leap again from Poole, but there's a very good chance that we do, being that he's been lights out in preseason and has shown consistent improvement year after year in the league. At this point, everything is lining up for Jordan Poole to take a star type leap, being that he'll be getting much more playing time than he's gotten better every year. But what would the projected stat line for this potentially historic year look like? Well, after taking a look at the numbers, I think it's safe to say that Jordan Poole will be getting around 32 or 33 minutes per game in his new starting role with the Warriors, which is far more than the 19 minutes on the court he was getting last year. Based on the minutes and improvement that we should expect to see from Jordan Poole, these are the numbers that we should also expect to see from him. 20 plus points per game, shooting nearly 10 threes a game. These numbers are based on the amount that Jordan Poole was scoring on his limited minutes in 2020, and as you can see, with more minutes, it's not unrealistic to see his scoring and three-point shooting climb up as well. But this does rely a lot on one thing and one thing only, that being his efficiency shooting the ball. Taking a look at the chart, it has been clear that Jordan Poole has been working on his three-point shooting over the past few years, being that he went from 27% in his rookie year to 35% in his second season. Based on this improvement and the fact that Poole has been working a lot with Steph Curry in the offseason, I think it's safe to say this number will go up again. And if Poole takes a similar leap as to what we saw from him last year, this means that he will be projected to shoot over 40% from 3 at an elite rate similar to his teammates Steph and Klay. Now, am I saying that this will definitely be the case? Well, at the moment, no. But what I will say is, based on the shooting that we've seen in the preseason and knowing that Poole is working hard in the offseason to get better, it's not crazy to say that this type of leap could happen. Because the fact is, we literally saw it last year from his rookie to sophomore season. If Poole is able to increase his numbers to what I just mentioned, there is no doubt in my mind that he is the most improved player in the league. And even though he likely wouldn't be chosen as an all-star with those numbers, any player that's putting up those stats is an all-star caliber player. And getting a guy like that on the team would have a much bigger impact on the Warriors than people think. If the Warriors are able to get an all-star caliber player at the shooting guard to start the season, this will help them in their playoff run in a big way. Because this team is expected to struggle until Klay comes back. But if they get a guy like Poole that can somewhat fill Klay's shoes, this will help the Warriors stay afloat until Christmas when Klay's expected to return. When Klay comes back is where things get interesting though, because if Poole is playing like an all-star, there is no way the Warriors send him back to the bench even if the Splash Bros are back. I think they would instead adjust this lineup to make one of the better starting lineups in the league. In the case that Poole stays in the starting lineup, I believe it would be best to keep him at the shooting guard position, and instead move Klay Thompson to the 3 spot where he could play a similar role to like he did in the Warriors' old dynasty. My thought process behind this is that Poole is pretty much strictly a scorer. Sure, he can get some boards and drop a couple of dimes, but he's in the starting lineup to score, which makes him a much better fit at the 2 as opposed to the 3. With Klay, it's a bit different, because even though he is a great scorer like Poole, he has the ability, or at least had the ability, to be a great defender before he suffered his injuries. If this is still the case, it just seems like he would be the guy to put at the 3 in this situation, because, well, he has a lot more versatility on both sides of the ball and can match up with elite forwards in the league like Tatum, Paul George, Chris Middleton, or even LeBron James. Where it gets tricky is with Andrew Wiggins though, because he proved to be one of the best wing defenders in the league last year and thrived at the small forward last season. But being that he stands at 6'7", I think it would be very interesting to see what he can do at the 4, and even though it might not be the best fit lineup wise, it would up the Warriors defense a lot and make up for the lack of defense that Curry and Poole would provide. Now before you run down to the comments, I know this lineup is not perfect and there's a chance it wouldn't work, but I think this team should at least try and keep Poole in the starting lineup once Klay gets back, because he's that good. Regardless of what the lineup will look like when Klay comes back, I have to say that the Warriors are starting off the season with a great looking roster full of young talents, veterans, and of course their superstar Steph Curry. And well, he makes this team exciting in itself. Warriors fans should be hyped, because there's a very good chance that Jordan Poole and the team as a whole make a lot of noise this year if they're able to stay healthy and mesh together before the playoffs begin. If you're still watching, chances are you enjoyed the video, and if that's the case, it would be greatly appreciated if you subscribed if you're new and join the Woods crew to help us get to 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you all on the next one. Woods out.